Hey everyone, I've been thinking about making a video about eclectic mood reading for quite a while, but I don't really know how to express it perfectly. And then recently we've been talking on Twitter a little bit about belonging as a reader in the booktube community and in general. And I've been thinking about all of this, that I don't really fit in anywhere right now. It's the same thing in real life. I've always read books that most of my friends don't. And I don't really have people to talk about it. That's why I started booktube. And now, after a few years of reading some of the hype books and reading some of the books people talk about, I realized again that I'm stuck in a position where I read books that not one community reads. I feel very confident of dipping in and out of the separate genres here on booktube, but I don't really feel like there is one person that reads the same books as I do. There are a lot of people who read books that I do, but not just one. And I don't know if I like it or don't like it, how the feeling is, but I do think there is an advantage to being an eclectic mood reader. Now, what do I mean when I talk about eclectic mood reading? If you followed me around for a while, you know that I have a very diverse and wide range of books I'm interested in. I'm not just stuck in one genre. And I view that as an advantage because when I get tired of one genre and I feel like every book I pick up is meh, I don't fall into a reading slump because I just switch genres. Now, looking at my bookshelves for a second, those two are mainly adult literary fiction, which is my main go-to genre, which is what I prefer to read and where I thrive and what I love to read. But it takes a lot of brain power, and we've all seen that last year I kind of wasn't able to focus a lot. So a lot of people don't know what to read then if they can't concentrate on the more literary books. They get stuck and they get frustrated. But I don't. I just went to those two shelves, which are YA, science fiction, fantasy, serious books, and the books that are not so, I don't want to say well written, because they are well written, but the writing is different. But what I mean is that you can fly through science fiction or fantasy or YA, chick lit romance, whatever, a lot faster than a deep literary study of character and other themes, whereas in a plot-driven book, you can just fly through it. And that's just much easier to do when you can't focus, when you have so many things going on in your mind, you just want to escape. And I love that books offer you so many opportunities and perspectives to go when it comes to reading. You can read female stories, male stories, you can read queer stories, you can read historical stories, you can read super fantastic stories, and all of that depends on your mood. And I am very much a mood reader. I pick up books by what I feel like. And I've recently picked up a literary fiction again because I really felt like I needed more substance in my reading after all these fantasy books that were set in historical London. And I don't know, I love those books. Don't get me wrong, they're fun to read. But it's kind of like eating candy all day. At some point you really need to eat something that sustains you, that keeps you going, and then you can go back to candy. Nothing wrong with candy. As I said in the beginning of the video, I haven't really figured out how to properly express what I'm thinking here. It's basically that I think diversity in reading is important, and not only diversity in different nationalities and own voices, but also genres, different kinds of books, different kinds of stories, because they all teach us something and they all enrich in our reading experience. And I can take so much that I learned from literary fiction into the world of fantasy and science fiction and vice versa. And it is influencing it, and it makes me a better reader and understand things more. And often when I go back and reread a book with this new knowledge that I gained reading different books, I understand things either more or differently than I did before. And I love that. I love eclectic reading, like not knowing what's going to come next and experiencing new stories, new things, and being open for new things. And I highly recommend everyone to do that, especially when you feel like you've read yourself into a corner where everything feels the same and nothing feels new and exciting anymore. Switch it up. Read something else, and all of a sudden when you go back, it will be much better. We all have our preferred genre. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think that picking books from a different genre that could be interesting, that people recommend, can be so much fun and such an adventure. Now let's talk about this in the comments. How do you feel with your belonging in the booktube community? Do you feel like you have your one niche where you feel like completely at home? Or do you feel like me, that you feel at home in many more different niches of the community? Or how's your reading? Do you like to stick in your comfort zone, or do you like to branch out? Or do you not have a small comfort zone? Are you like me, that your comfort zone is pretty broad? I also have to mention that I do a lot more fantasy sci-fi reading on ebooks and audio, and a lot of my nonfiction happens on audio as well. That's also something I'm very eclectic in the formats I'm reading. I don't just want to stick to one thing. I'm basically bad with sticking to one thing. Anyways, I'm starting to ramble. Let's talk about all of this in comments. Thank you all for watching. Bye bye. Can't really wait to see what you have to say. It's beschäftigt mich. Blah.